Good morning, good morning, good morning. I want to welcome everybody coming in, and welcome everybody who's already here. I want to welcome all of you out there in virtual land, which is really more reality than we give it credit for. I don't know why we call it virtual, because you're real. I'm pretty sure you're real. So I want to welcome everybody. We're going to get started right away with our first two community songs. I invite you to lift your voice. Let's fill this planet with joy. Here we go.
Woke up this morning with my mind stayed on Spirit. Woke up this morning with my mind stayed on Spirit. Woke up this morning with my mind stayed on Spirit. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Walking and talking with my mind stayed on Spirit. Walking and talking with my mind stayed on Spirit. Walking and talking with my mind stayed on Spirit. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. You can't hate your neighbor. Can't hate your neighbor with your mind. Stayed on Spirit. Can't hate your neighbor with your mind. Stayed on Spirit. Can't hate your neighbor with your mind. Stayed on Spirit. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. You love everybody. Love everybody with your mind. Stayed on Spirit. Love everybody with your mind. Stayed on Spirit. Love everybody with your mind. Stayed on Spirit. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Woke up this morning with my mind stayed on Spirit. I woke up this morning with my mind stayed on Spirit. Woke up this morning with my mind stayed on Spirit. Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. Yeah. Now y'all know this one too, right? This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Every day, every day, every day, every day, every day, every day. I'm gonna let my little light shine everywhere. Everywhere that I may go, I'm gonna let it shine. Everywhere that I may go, I'm gonna let it shine. Everywhere that I may go, I'm gonna let it shine. Every day, every day, every day, every day. Which day? Every day, every day. I'm gonna let my little light shine. Let that shine on through. Let that light shine on through. I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine on me and shine on you. I'm gonna let it shine. Let it show what the power of love can do. I'm gonna let it shine. Every day, every day, every day, every day, every day, every day. I'm gonna let my little light shine. What day? Monday gave me the gift of love. Tuesday, peace came sure enough. Wednesday, told me to have more faith. Thursday, gave me a little more grace. Friday, told me to sing and pray. Saturday, told me what to say. Sunday, gave me the power to mind to let my little light shine. Lift your voice down. This little light of mine I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Every day, every day, every day, every day, every day. I'm gonna let my little light shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine.
Good morning, good morning, good morning. It's so nice to have bodies in the room and faces. And it's equally nice to know that you are still out there wherever you are. It's a whole new paradigm to remember to talk to people that I can't see again, because I got really good at that, and then I got really confused when there were people in the room I could see. So now I'm doing both. So my name is Reverend Rafe Ellis, and I am honored to be the senior minister here at Sierra Center for Spiritual Living. So let me tell you who we are and remind us of who we are. We are a radically inclusive, spiritually progressive, supportive community that celebrates the very diversity of creation. We strive to live authentic spiritual lives through a practical application of the teachings of science of mind. We engage in sacred practices that uplift our spirit, deepen our awareness, and ignite our soul's self-expression. We demonstrate active compassion to ourselves, to each other, and the world. We experience meaningful contribution through giving generously of our time, talents, and treasures, and we intentionally, on purpose, shamelessly, unapologetically promote our community and our teachings. And if you have your phone handy or if you're watching online, you can help us promote these teachings and this community by sharing this live stream on whatever social media platforms you're playing on. You can also do that later. You can go to Sierra Spiritual on YouTube, grab any of the talks, and share them at any time. So just know that is available. And so one of the things that we do every Sunday morning to demonstrate our commitment to inclusion is our inclusion candle lighting ritual. And we light these candles to celebrate the unity of all peoples, all faiths, all beings, all life. We light the first candle for the shamanic traditions, honoring the beliefs and practices of all indigenous peoples. We light the second candle for Hinduism, honoring the path of knowledge, action, and devotion. We light the third candle for Taoism, honoring the path of ultimate reality, the natural way. We light the fourth candle for Judaism, honoring the ethical path of living by sacred law. We light the fifth candle for all forms of Buddhism, honoring the middle way and path of compassion. We light the sixth candle for all forms of Christianity, honoring the teachings of Jesus as the path of love, forgiveness, and healing by the presence within. We light the seventh candle for all forms of Islam, honoring the path of submission to the will of God as the highest calling. We light the eighth candle for the religion of Baha'i, honoring the path of unity and peace. We light the ninth candle for all forms of New Thought teachings, honoring the metaphysical path of mental healing through the practice of universal spiritual principles of love and law. And we light the 10th candle for absolute inclusivity, affirming that all are welcome and celebrated here. And we light this final candle, honoring the infinity of oneness as all creation, seen and unseen. Thank you, Deborah. So now we're going to turn it back over to our musicians for our next community song. Here we go.
I shall not be moved. I shall not be moved like a tree that's planted by the water. I shall not be moved. Glory, hallelujah. I shall not be moved. Glory, hallelujah. I shall not be moved like a tree that's planted by the water. I shall not be moved. Though the tempest rages, I shall not be moved. On the rock of ages, I shall not be moved like a tree that's planted by the water. I shall not be moved. We are all colors together. We shall not be moved. All colors together. We shall not be moved like a tree that's planted by the water. We shall not be moved. We shall not be moved. We shall not be moved like a tree that's planted by the water. We shall not be moved like a tree that's planted by the water. We shall not be moved.
Thank you, musicians. So this is our time of announcements. We, if you haven't noticed, and I'm thinking those of you that are here have noticed, we're open. Those of you that aren't here, we're open. So we've implemented a necklace system. So if you want everybody to stay 6 feet away from you, and to wear a mask when interacting with you, you put on a red beaded necklace. If you're kind of still figuring it out and you're not sure, but you're going to decide case by case, you put on a yellow strand. And if you are completely comfortable interacting with anybody without distancing, without masks, you put on a green one. Now, or you can just be confused and wear them all. So here's the thing. If you're wearing a green one and you're interacting with someone that's wearing a red one, honor their comfort zone. Put on a mask while you're interacting with them. Stay 6 feet apart. Honor the highest level of protection that people are asking for. Okay? That way we can actually respect one another, we can engage with one another, we can do it safely, we can do it respectfully, and we don't have to have the same conversation 30 times. Okay? So that is what is available. So we have an ongoing first Tuesday of the month gathering. You can switch the slide over to the next one. Actualizing wholeness. This is really focusing on metaphysics from the point of view of David Bohm. David Bohm is a physicist, an amazingly brilliant individual. And he really calls us into that space of questioning everything that we think we know and then to lean into listening to the divine knowledge and wisdom within us that actually does know, and to allow that to speak through us. And so our next time that we meet is August 3rd from 4:30 to 6 Pacific time. This is a Zoom-only meeting right now, so there's the meeting ID. It's also in our newsletter, so I invite you to come join us. It really is just a sandbox of consciousness where we're going to get together and play. So please join us. So this is our time of inward shift. And I invite you to just take a breath and let everything else fall away. And Deborah, our practitioner this morning, is going to come and do a brief talk, power talk, on gratitude, one of our community values. And then she's going to lead us into a short meditation. She'll bring us out of the meditation with our opening spiritual mind treatment, and then lead us in reading our affirmation.
Good morning, beautiful people. So glad you're here. So today we're going to take a look at our community value, gratitude. And what is gratitude? How do we practice, and why even bother? So gratitude is a state of being that radiates from the heart, beginning with our thoughts. Being thankful, appreciating a sense that there is enough, and we are enough. It is a practice of focusing our attention on what we are thankful for. So why practice? Well, when we practice through repetition, which then becomes a habit, we know that process, right? And they say, science, 21 days, 28 days, I've heard different ones, that as we do that, it becomes part of us, right? And it's not automatic totally, but we lean into it much easier. So why bother? Well, it can calm us and relax us. It can shift our focus. And it feels good, and it's attractive. So when we're practicing gratitude and we're living in Thanksgiving, I think we're rather attractive, energetically, right? So, with those things in mind, I want to invite you to find, if you don't already have a daily practice of gratitude, and that can look a lot of different ways. You can do it as a group. I learned something here at Sierra Center for Spiritual Living that people actually text each other their gratitudes daily. I love that so much. You could start a chain of that. You could invite a friend and ask that friend after a certain amount of time that they then go and invite a friend to do that. That's one thing you could do. So there are many things that you could do. And what I want to invite you this morning to do is to find whatever is calling you in terms of a gratitude practice so that you can get in the flow and then it be a habit, right? So have fun with it and be creative. Namaste. next breath to be a little bit deeper than the one before. Just breathing in. Breathing in this power and presence, this love, this deep and abiding joy that is present as the very collective breath that we share together right here in this moment. This one is all-knowing, all-powerful. It is present in and through all that is seen and all that is unseen. It is sustaining all of life. It is breathing all of life. It is simultaneously creator and creation. It is the allness of life. It is my very breath. And it's from this place of truth that I joyfully speak a word this morning, a blessing for this time together in spiritual community, claiming, accepting, and affirming that love is indeed reigning supreme right here and right now. It is expressing in a multiplicity of form. It is in every thought, every word, every deed, every action. It is that one power that connects all of us. And my heart is so grateful this morning to give thanks for all of the hands that have collectively gone into bringing this service forth, for all of the love that is moving, expressing, and being known in this spiritual community called Sierra Center for Spiritual Living. It is on purpose. It is mighty, mighty, mighty. So I give thanks in advance for the talk from our beloved Reverend Rafe, for everyone in service, for every musician, for our sound team, and just for any love that has been poured into this space and beyond. So I just simply wrap it all in glory and love and release into that divine law, knowing that it is fulfilled beyond any expectation, beyond any knowing. And I simply just allow it to be so. And we anchor this together by saying, and so it is. All right. Good morning, good morning, good morning out there in the internet land, whatever space you're viewing us from, and welcome to everyone here. My name is Deborah Ellis, and I am privileged to be one of your licensed practitioners here at Sierra Center. So I'm so glad you're here, and what I'm going to do is go through the affirmation, and I'll read it once through, and then we can read it together. So I am a revelation of overflowing divine truth. Woohoo. I am a revelation of overflowing divine truth. And so it is. Welcome, welcome.
Old pirate ships they rob I, sold I to the merchant ships. Minutes after they took I from the bottomless pit, but my hand was made strong by the hand of the Almighty. We forward in this generation triumphantly. Won't you help to sing these songs of freedom? 'Cause all I ever had Redemption songs, redemption songs. Emancipate yourselves from mental slavery. None but ourselves can free our minds. Have no fear for atomic energy. None of them can stop time. How long shall they kill our prophets while we stand aside and look? Some say it's just a part of it. We've got to fulfill the book. Won't you help to sing these songs of freedom? 'Cause all I ever had. Redemption songs, redemption songs. Emancipate yourselves from mental slavery. None but ourselves can free our minds. Have no fear for atomic energy, for none of us can stop the time. How long shall they kill our prophets while we stand aside and look? Some say it's just a part of it. We've got to fulfill the book. Won't you help to sing these songs of freedom? 'Cause all I ever had. Redemption songs, redemption songs. These songs of freedom, these songs of freedom.
Let's take a breath. So this month, our focus is on being pulled by vision. And it's really interesting that, a year ago, or a little bit more than a year ago, these talks were put together. There's a thing that we do in the ministry where we all collaborate and we vision and come up with themes, and then we join in and different ministers do different talks, and it comes together in a package that we make available to ministers throughout the movement. And this particular talk for today, I actually wrote about 18 months ago. And it's really interesting, this synchronicity of how all of this stuff comes together. And so the talk title is Your Commitment Greater Than Your Resistance? And it's interesting that we're in this time right now where our commitment and our resistance get to do this dance together. And many of us, if we're being really honest, we don't even know what we're resisting anymore, right? Because everything is so up in the air, and there's so much confusion. So I want to offer us this to start with. One of my favorite, least favorite quotes. You'll understand that in just a minute. This is Ernest Holmes from It's Up to You, page 27. One of the greatest stumbling blocks in any person's spiritual advancement is dishonesty. The refusal to face honestly an idea. That idea happens to, wait a minute, let me start over. Sometimes Ernest writes in weird sentences. Let's just own that. One of the greatest stumbling blocks in any person's spiritual advancement is dishonesty, the refusal to honestly face an idea if that idea happens to not please them. See, I have some recognition. This comes in part from the human tendency to take the line of least resistance, whether it be in our physical endeavors or in our operation of our mind. Confronted with an idea that repudiates one we have held for years, we go far out of our way to entirely go around that idea to keep from being compelled to analyze and possibly to absorb it. Our cry is, I don't like to believe that. Back of this is the fear that an idea may be forced into our consciousness, which will uncover to us our own responsibility. Yeah. It's the R word, talk. I oftentimes laugh. I think I could probably get away with expelling the F-bomb from the pulpit more than I can get away with saying responsibility from the pulpit. In classes, people refer to it as the R word. But here's the thing, folks. Our invitation, let me just stop because I'm really distracted. I know it's the wrong slide, and if we could all just let that go, I can focus on my talk. Thank you. Our responsibility is to be 100% honest with ourselves. See, it matters way less if I'm honest with you, if I'm not honest with me first. Because it's the lies that we tell ourselves that show up in our lives as devastation. It's the lies that we tell ourselves that show up as victim consciousness and disempowerment. It's those lies that really cut us off at our spiritual knees, that tell us that we're victims of circumstance, as if we have no power to navigate whatever circumstance arrives here on planet Earth. And I want you to understand this morning that there's not a word of truth in that. Not a word. Each of us, and I say this a lot, and I'm going to keep saying it. You are a on purpose, intentional desire in the heart of creation itself to experience itself as your life. You are fully infused with and empowered by creation itself. Now, how in that realm of power can there be an element of victimhood? Think about it. You are the divine in form. You're not all of it, but you are an idea of it that can only expand its experience of itself as you. It gave you all of itself so that you too can create exactly the same way it does. There's nothing in that that can possibly be victimhood, except that we separate ourselves from the truth of what we are. And then we believe we're victims, and then we show up and we act like victims. Right? Deborah mentioned that thing about habits. So here's how this mechanism that we call a human being works. Our thoughts create our feelings. Our feelings create our urges. Our urges motivate our actions. Our actions repeated create our habits. Our habits repeated create our lifestyle. Our lifestyle repeated, create the experience that we have during the time that we're here on planet Earth. Now, the beautiful part about all that is you go back to the point of origin if you want to change it. Your thought. Right? If your thoughts create your feelings and you don't like what you're feeling, go back one step. What are you thinking? Get honest about what you're thinking, even if it's a painful honesty. Get honest about what you're thinking. Now, when I say get honest about what you're thinking, I am not suggesting that you go out and invest $500 and put it on a billboard out on 49 that says, on May 3rd, this is what I was thinking. No. Nobody else needs to know what you're thinking, but you do. You do. And we need to stop lying to ourselves. Okay? One of the most precious things I've learned in science of mind is that principle is never bound by precedent. Never. That spiritual principle is not bound by anything that has happened in the past. Right? What that tells us is we get to change. But we only get to change if we choose to change. You cannot complain your way into a better life. Right? Everybody get that? You cannot complain your way into a better life. Why not? Because where's your focus? It's on the problem. What are you amplifying? The problem. The more you complain, the more defeated you become. Why? Because all you're focused on is the problem. And if you do that long enough, you begin to share an identity with that problem. And you begin to see yourself as the problem. And there's not a more defeated space within humanity than the hopelessness of thinking we are fundamentally wrong, that we are fundamentally a mistake. It drives addiction. It drives suicide. It drives homicide. It drives the worst expressions of pain in humanity. Because in that space, we think we have nothing left to lose. In that space, there is a hopelessness of separation. And it's simply not true. You know, many of you know my story, or at least what I've shared of it. Nobody knows the whole thing except me, because I lived every moment of it. But what I want you to know is we can recover from the ugliest stuff. The ugliest stuff. In my active addiction, I engaged in behaviors that, you know, I read about now in books. And it's like, ooh, I did that. But never would have imagined that anybody else would do that, because I was special in my screwed upness. Anybody else have that? That we can't be special in being special, so we're going to be the best screwed up person we can find? See, I see some laughter because I know who's in this room. We are not our behavior. We never were, we never will be. And your behavior is a result of your thoughts. Change your thinking, change your life. I know that sounds oversimplified, but I promise you it's true. But what is also true is you cannot cover up the lie with enough positive thoughts to change it. Okay? If you fertilize weeds, you get really healthy weeds. Okay? And this idea that we can be in denial and continue to lie to ourselves under the surface and act our way into a better life, you can't, because we can't sustain it. Right? Eventually, what we really believe about ourselves comes to the top and shows up. It's that place in abusive relationships, in that cycle of abuse, where the abuser, after that release of the abuse and that honeymoon phase where it's never going to happen again, and that can hold on and that can sustain itself for a brief period of time. But if the underlying cause is never addressed, the cycle continues and the tension begins to build because the truth is still operating in there. And eventually it explodes and we go back to the honeymoon phase. Now, that's easily identified in domestic violence, but that same pattern of abuse happens in each and every one of us. It's a cycle of self-abuse. It's a cycle of self-hatred where eventually what we really believe about ourselves keeps showing up. And we keep being surprised by it. And so I invite you this morning, quit being surprised by what you already know. See, the only thing that surprises us is that we have somewhere convinced ourselves that the lies that we tell ourselves are what's true. Doesn't make them true. Right? Just because you believe it doesn't make it true. If you think that's not accurate, look at some social media platforms. Look at some of the stuff people are believing these days. Doesn't make it true, thank God. Right? Just because you believe it doesn't make it true. And just because you don't believe it doesn't mean it's false. Right? There's a lot of us who don't believe we're as magnificent as we are. It doesn't make you less magnificent. Ha ha. Right? I get all the time, how can you tell me you love me, you don't know me? Well, people tell each other they hate each other all the time and they don't know each other. So if people can hate each other for no reason, I can love people for no reason. I don't care if you believe me or not. Your belief is not required to make it true. I love you. Why do I love you? Because you breathe. That's it. Because you exist. Because you are a divine expression of creation that is here to enhance the experience of the divine, which is all of us. But see, we struggle mightily with this idea of oneness. Even in our own faith tradition, we slip into the duality of individual versus individualized. Because it's hard. It's challenging to our little human brains to wander around this planet where everything really looks separate. Right? When we leave here today, we're going to take what appears to be our separate bodies into our separate cars with our separate car key to our separate homes. And yet, the truth is, we're not separate at all. And it's a lot to wrap our little human heads around. Okay. And so the invitation is constantly to yield to the pull. So let's take a minute. If you're in a boat, right, and the anchor's down, right, the wind is blowing from behind, it pushes you. And when it reaches the end of the anchor, anybody know what the boat does? It just starts going in circles. It just goes in circles. How many of us, when we're pushed by something, we get to the end of our rope, we get to the edge of our comfort zone, and it's time to up anchor so we can move a little bit forward, only we're not going to up that anchor. And all of a sudden, our lives are just going in circles. Anybody else, or is that just me? Okay. So the first thing of being pulled by vision is we have to be willing to up anchor. If we're going to say yes to a vision, we have to be willing to lift the anchor, which means you have to be willing to let go of your comfort zone. That's our anchor. All those places where it's all nice and comfy. And it's not really comfortable. Most of it's painful. We misidentify familiar with comfort. Right? It's familiar, so therefore it must be comfortable. As one who lives with chronic pain, it's familiar. It ain't comfortable, but it's very familiar. In my active addiction, there was a lot that was familiar. None of it was comfortable, right? again, we have to tell ourselves the truth. Are you comfortable or are you anchored in familiar? Because if you have any divine discontent that you want things to be different, you're not really comfortable. Hate to break it to you, but you're not. Right? So we have to lift anchor. And the third thing that we have to understand is that transformation, what is transformation really? Transformation renders the previous version of a thing unrecognizable. You cannot transform your life and have it look the same way it does now. Anybody seen a caterpillar that is transformed into a butterfly that every once in a while still looks like a caterpillar? I mean, you're looking at the butterfly and it's like, oh, you just turned back to a caterpillar. What happened? No, because the previous version is unrecognizable. In that whole process of becoming the butterfly, the caterpillar is literally completely dissolved into a gelatinous state. Now, here's the part that we don't always talk about. The necessity of that is because that feeds and nourishes the butterfly, right? So it makes everything that you've been through valuable. Everything that has been you up until this point is fertilizer for the new you. But we have to let it dissolve. We have to be willing to release our previous idea of ourselves in order to feed the new idea of ourselves. It's such a brilliant system. And the only thing that stops us from evolving into an amazing expression of our brilliance every day is the lies that we've bought about ourselves. That's it. And if we are telling the lies, we can tell the truth. That's the part we have to get. You are empowered with the truth. I'm going to begin to wrap up with this, if I can find this quote. Joseph Murphy, The Power of Your Subconscious Mind. If you set up resistance in your mind to the flow of life through you, this emotional congestion will get snarled up in your subconscious mind and cause all kinds of negative conditions. Shifting that shifts all those conditions. We are not, and I want to be very clear, we don't control the weather. We don't control other people. Right? You being responsible for your experience of life does not mean you are responsible for what other people do. It means you are responsible for how you respond to what other people do. You are responsible for how you show up in those circumstances. Tornadoes are going to happen. Viruses are going to happen because we don't control natural law. But the intelligence of divinity within us knows exactly how to dance with natural law. Not to control it, not to change it, but how to dance with it so that we are living in synchronicity. Was it 3 years ago? I was in North Carolina to bury my son. And I was listening, went to the center there, and Dr. Barbara Waterhouse was talking about people. There happened to be a hurricane on the East Coast, right? And I was like, I don't know if I'm going to get my flight back to California or not, because it's not a good idea to take off in the middle of a hurricane. Just not a good idea. And people were flooding her with prayer requests that she pray to stop the hurricane. And she was really clear from the pulpit, not going to happen. Not going to happen. No matter how many times, no matter how many people ask me to pray that the hurricane stop, I'm not going to do that. That is not my job. It doesn't even make sense because I would be asking to control natural law, and that's not my job. But what I will pray for is that the divine intelligence within every human organism on the planet is awake and aware and follows the divine intelligence within them to navigate wherever they are in the hurricane. Let's go back to the R word. We don't want to take responsibility for how we're dancing with the hurricanes. We just want the hurricanes to stop. That's not how it works. It's not how it works. And notice, we want to call someone else and have them stop the hurricane. It's not how it works, right? There's this meme that used to fly around on Facebook. It's not my circus, they're not my monkeys. Well, guess what? It is your circus. They are your monkeys. You're one of them. Because there's only one circus. And we are it. And so perhaps responsibility is not such a nasty word. You don't have to change. Yeah, I'm going to say this. You only have to change one thing. One thing. Everything. It's the only thing you have to change. Just one thing. You have to change everything. Let's take this into prayer. And so as I allow my consciousness to become aware, palpably aware, to recognize, to recognize, to know again, that there is one infinite, ever-present allness. Beyond any name, it is infinite in its being. It is eternal in its being. It is unlimited potentiality. It is that singular source out of which all is created, unto which all return. And so I know that I must be that in form. That creation began and has been continuous and expresses as me. That all that it is lives, moves, and has its being expressing as me. And what is true of me is true of all life, of every form of expression in the physical and everything that surrounds the physical. Everything, this one divine wisdom, love, knowledge, expressing itself, expanding. The one thing that it can expand is experience. And so I lift my voice, claiming and affirming that humanity is awakening to this truth within itself. That all of the divine, whether we call it God, love, Buddha, peace, Allah, Great Spirit, the name matters not. It is unlimited. It is expressing. And so I speak my word, claiming and affirming that everything unlike it bubbles to the top to be honestly embraced, knowing that the embrace is the first step to healing. That embracing the lies that are operating and cashing them in for truth is the redemption that we seek. And as we engage in this reciprocity of healing, of revealing the truth within, ourselves, we reveal the truth within the whole, because there's only one thing happening. So I speak my word, claiming and affirming that each divine expression of life opens the mind and the arms to embrace responsibility at a whole new level, the ability within each of us to respond from the God-centered wholeness that we are, to heal this body of creation, one thought, one action at a time. And we celebrate. Oh, how we celebrate. We celebrate and cherish every uncomfortable opportunity to heal. We say yes to up anchoring, knowing that the ship will not be adrift, but guided, pulled exactly where it's to be gone. We say yes. We say yes to being more than we know we can be. And we celebrate the very messy, awkward dance of getting there. We celebrate. And so in this celebration, knowing that the word spoken is the word fulfilled, that it's already done, it's done now, there is no waiting period, I release my word, stepping into the next expression of divinity. I let go. I let it be. And I invite you to join me as we anchor this together by saying, and so it is. Let's take another breath together. I am just crazy enough to love responsibility. Not everybody in my life loves that I love responsibility so much either. But that's a whole different talk. All right. So this is our time of conscious giving. So I'm going to let's say our affirmation together. And before we do that, I want to invite all of you that are watching online, whenever you're watching, we appreciate and gladly receive your financial support. And you can give that by going to www.sierracenter.org/donate.html. That information is also there on the bottom of the live stream. So please consider giving to support what is spiritually feeding you in this moment. All right, let's say our intentional giving affirmation together, shall we? Here we go. I give this gift with love and joy from a consciousness of abundance. Divine love blesses and prospers all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive. And so it is. All right, so we're going to move a basket around the room while they're singing, and we're going to actually keep the person's hands so we're not sharing.
I do what gives me life. I do what gives me life. I do what gives me life. Hey, I do what gives me life. I do what gives me life. I do what gives me life. Hey, in these moments I am giving. In situations called to me, I now choose this path of living. I now choose what sets me free. I do what gives me life. I do what gives me life. I do what gives me life. Hey, I do what gives me life. I do what gives me life. I do what gives me life. Hey.
So I just take a moment to bless the divine energy as money, knowing that it blesses Sierra Center for Spiritual Living, that it blesses Centers for Spiritual Living as a whole, and that it blesses all of our nonprofit partners, that we give through Sierra Center to do good work in the world. And so it is.
So it is.
Thank you. So a quick reminder, we have our Actualizing Wholeness group that comes up on August 3rd, so mark your calendars for that, 4:30 to 6:30 online. That is Pacific time. Because it is a Zoom offering, anyone, anywhere is welcome to join us for that. If you are available to get back into doing Sunday service, give us a shout. We will get back with you and get you connected in some form of service. Quite honestly, we're kind of feeling it out and recreating ourselves as we go. So if you have a particular idea, give us a shout. We'll get you connected. All right. Musicians, sing us out.
I release and I let go. I let the Spirit run my life, and my heart is open wide. Yes, I'm only here for God. No more trouble, no more strife. With my faith I see the light. I am free in the Spirit. Yes, I'm only here for God. I release and I let go. I let the Spirit run my life, and my heart is open wide. Yes, I'm only here for God. No more struggle, no more strife. With my faith I see the light. I am free in the Spirit. Yes, I'm only here for God. I release and I let go. Let the Spirit run my life, and my heart is open wide. Yes, I'm only